All right, Ezra 8, let's call this one Building Understanding, as in this chapter, Ezra is going to read the law to the people as they are actually going to request him to bring out the book of the law and have it read. Imagine that. Most times when people mention law now, they're like, I'd rather do something else. But the people here are in a situation where they're trying to rebuild, and so they see the ways in which the law can possibly help them do it more effectively, understanding that they've had plenty of struggles to this point. And so as Ezra reads the book of the law, the people are going to be attentive, and the Levites are going to help them understand what is actually being read. Specifically going to say that it's being read clearly and being explained in a way that gives people the sense of what God actually means, which reminded me of the way that one of my instructors back when said that, look, if we're not explaining the meaning of the passage, meaning what that author meant when he wrote to that audience, then we're doing something wrong. And so it reminded me of a point I want to say for later as I summarize the rest of the chapter, which goes on to show the people seeming to realize, as they get an understanding of what God actually meant, the ways in which they've actually been getting in their own way as they've been trying to rebuild Jerusalem. And so the people are going to start to weep as they get an understanding of the law. But the Levites aren't simply going to give them an understanding of the law. They're going to give them some encouragement that this is a holy day. And so it's not a day for weeping, because the joy of the Lord is your strength. And that's a famous passage. And to this day, I don't necessarily know what that literally means, but the next few verses are going to say that the people are actually encouraged because they had an understanding of what God wanted from them and a desire, we're going to see at the end of the chapter, to actually get that done, because this is all taking place in the 7th month, which gives them the opportunity to immediately take what they've heard and, beyond simply wanting to do the right thing, to celebrate the Feast of Booths. And everybody likes a party, right? But the Feast of Booths is one of those celebrations that reminded them specifically of the time when they dealt in temporary shelters during the Exodus, or at least that's what their forefathers did during those 40 years in the wilderness, which is ironically similar to the fact that they are fresh out of 70 years of captivity, trying to go through the difficulty of resettling the same territory that their forefathers or predecessors settled. And so it seems like great timing for a reminder of the ways in which they can get out of their own way as they try to rebuild Israel. And so as they listen to the law, as it convicts them, and as the Levites encourage them not to stay sad, because they now understand the way that they can finally build effectively and once again get out of their own way, they tell them to go celebrate this as a holy day. Eat well, and share with those who didn't have enough or didn't prepare enough for the day ahead, so that everybody can rejoice at their new opportunity to move forward more effectively, even though, as we've already mentioned, Nehemiah has much damage to undo. But regardless of the difficulties ahead, this chapter describes the way in which they can move forward with the joy that's based in a better understanding of what they need to do, which actually reminds me of the disappointment I had this week in looking at some summaries of books that we've already covered, like the Kings and the Chronicles. But those summaries included some contradictions of what I went back to go and fact check from the actual Bible, which reminded me that as much as I might have found flaws in what they were doing, I don't want to be a log splinter person, meaning Jesus told the story of don't be so keen on the splinter in your brother's eye that you forget the log in your own. And so as I add summaries to these chapters, my disappointment in seeing those summaries this week reminded me that I don't want to be disappointing. But much like the Levites in this chapter, I want to do my best to make sure that these summaries are actually giving you a better understanding of what God actually said. Because I suspect that just about everyone who hopes to talk about the word struggles with some desire to make it fit what we want it to say. But I remember how relieved I was when I started to get a better understanding of who God was as he actually described himself. And so as we move forward into the stories that directly describe Jesus' life, my hope is that these stories can help bring you the joy of having a better understanding of who God actually is and how his wisdom can help your life right now.